Hi, and welcome back. Now, I have been catching up on videos since returning from my weekend away, and Fury, I know I still have one of yours to watch, and I will get around to watching it, but I thought I'd post this video first because of one of AK's videos that I watched, and something he talked about, and sort of offered to, ask people what about their experience in the same thing. So I thought, oh yeah, I can do a video on that, that'd be fun. So I'm going to do so, and then I will watch Fury's last video afterwards, and then I think I'm all caught up. Ben, if you're watching this, I did watch your video of your great white shark. I think that's absolutely brilliant, that great white. Obviously I couldn't post a comment on your video to say that I've seen it, but I have, and that is an absolutely brilliant great white. And Fury, yes, I will catch up on your last video. Anyway, on AK's last video, he was talking about a time, I think it was many years ago, when he managed to smash into a cop car. And he did pose the question while doing that of what's the worst ticket that you've ever had from the cops. So I thought, well, that's a really interesting subject to talk about. So I thought I could make a little video and tell you about that. By the way, we're back on BallinCraig here, so I will return. I missed a bit there. Get out and check something I might have. Start here. No, I can't have. Just read imagining it. Yeah, that's alright. Anyway, so I will be returning to Greenland's farm. I've actually reduced the farms that I've got on saved games now from 6 to 3, because of the 6 I had, there were only 3 that I really felt any desire to actually be playing. So the 3 farms I've now got, down from 6, I have my my Belly Spring farm still, which is my favourite farm on all of FS22, so that one won't be going anywhere, but we're still giving it a break at the moment and just playing a few other things instead, because I've played that one for so long. I've got my Greenland's farm, which is the UK one, with the very long driveway, you might recall that one, and I've got this one, which is BallinCraig, which is another Irish farm. This is the one where there's lots of issues with the map, but I'm really enjoying playing it despite all the issues that it has, and so we will keep with this one. So anyway, I'm going to tell you about the worst ticket that I ever got from the police, or traffic cops, sort of thing. And I will just say it was quite a long time ago, but I will need to explain for this video to make sense for people that are watching it who aren't from New Zealand. I'm going to need to do a wee bit of explaining first. So in New Zealand, if you've got a car, a motorbike, a trailer, or a truck, or anything like that you want to have on the road, you've got to have both registration and warrant of fitness. Now the registration, you can buy that in any sort of length of time you want. Well, it's got to be in 1 month interval, lots, but you could buy it 1 month at a time, you can buy it 6 months at a time, you can buy it 12 months at a time. I think 12 months is the longest you can buy registration for at a time, and it's just basically a tax. So in order to register a vehicle, it's got to have a warrant of fitness, but there's no other requirements in order to have registration. Basically it's a tax grab, registration for a vehicle. And then the warrant of fitness. Now I know some states in America have a similar thing to our warrant of fitnesses, but I know that some I don't think do. So I'll just briefly try and explain what that is. So a warrant of fitness, if your vehicle is pre-2000, you've got to get a warrant of fitness every 6 months. If it's post-2000, you have to get one every 12 months. And you take your vehicle into a testing station, and they test various things for it to make sure it's up to safety standards. So they check that you've got at least 2.5 millimeters of tread on each tyre. They check that your shock absorbers are absorbing. They check that your seat belts don't have any rips or tears in them, or any fraying around the edges. So they check pretty well absolutely everything that could be a safety issue on your motor vehicle. Now, I must admit that, in my opinion, for what little it's worth, I agree with the concept of wind fitnesses, because it is good to know that every vehicle on the road is up to a certain safety standard. You know, the brakes going to work and everything else is working as it should. But I don't necessarily agree with the way they do it in New Zealand, and that I think sometimes they can fail you on wind fitness for things that aren't really, in my opinion, safety related at all. For an example, they can fail you if your seatbelts have faded in the sun. And this is a bit ridiculous in my opinion, because although I know that fading could affect the strength of the webbing of the material slightly, the seatbelts are so thick and the webbing so strong that it's not actually going to make any real difference to it. You know, if it was fade around the edges and things, that could definitely make a difference to the strength of your seatbelts, but just a bit of colour fading on it isn't going to actually make any difference. So sometimes things like that, I think they go overboard a wee bit and can fail you on things that aren't really a safety issue, in my opinion. But as I said, that's its opinion, and the law says you've got to have wind and ridge to drive on the road, so that's what it is. Anyway, so this story, we're going back many decades to back when I used to ride motorbikes, and the reason I rode motorbikes basically is because I couldn't afford to run a car in those days, so I had motorbikes instead. And so one day I got stopped at a checkpoint. So I wasn't actually pulled over by the cops because I was doing something wrong per se, but this was just a checkpoint where they breathalyse you to make sure you haven't been drinking, and they check your wind fitness and registration status of your motor vehicle at the same time while I've got you pulled over there. And I was on my motorbike, and the cop comes up and he has a look at my motorbike and he says, "Has this motorcycle got a wind fitness?" I said, no, officer." "Oh, has this motorcycle got registration?" No, officer." "Oh, have you got a license to ride this motorbike?" "Yes, officer, I have got one of those." Okay. At this point, the cop got out his ticket book and started to write down my number plate. So I knew that I wasn't going to get away with just a warning, but I was getting a ticket. So I said to the cop, "Excuse me, officer, I wouldn't actually worry about copying down that number plate if I were you." He's like, "Oh, why is that?" I said, because I knew I was going to get a ticket at this point anyway, so I said, "That number plate doesn't actually belong on this motorbike." "Yes." "Oh, so what's this number plate off then?" I said, "Oh, a motorbike I owned a few years ago." "Oh yes, and why is it on this motorbike then?" I said, "Well, because this motorbike that I'm riding now doesn't actually have any number plate, but if I rode it around with no number plate on, it would stand out a wee bit and I'd get pulled over all the time." The cop says, "Do you know I could give you about $1,500 worth of tickets for this?" And I'm like, "Yes, officer." And he said, "Because you come clean and told me this before I radioed it through and found out for myself, I'm going to give you a ticket for no wind fitness and no registration, and I never want to see this motorbike on the road ever again." So I got away with about $300 worth of tickets, took that motorbike home, took the number plate off it and sold it as is where is. So probably got a couple of $100 for it, almost enough to pay off the tickets I just received, but not quite, sort of thing, and consider myself extremely lucky to have got away so lightly given the tickets he could have given me. But as I said, it was, you know, the reason he was nice to me is because I came clean and told him about the number plate thing before he discovered it for himself. So yeah, that is probably the scariest and worst ticket I've ever had in my life. I mean, when I was a young teenager, I used to quite regularly get speeding tickets and tickets for no wind fitness and things, but none of them were quite as scary as that one. So that's my scariest ticket story. I'm just going to finish. So what I'm doing here on this field right here is the two ends, because I'm doing two rows at the ends of it, like headers basically, and then I'll just be doing up and down strips for all the rest of this field. So, and then that'll be that done. Yeah, getting here with that. So that was my scariest ticket story that I want to tell you. I didn't actually have really anything else planned to tell you in this video, but I suppose I could mention my weekend. So this weekend, just been, I was away. One of my older brothers, because I've got two older brothers, and one of them was turning 60. He was having a surprise 60th birthday, and what he didn't know is that we had organised a London bus, one of these double-decker London buses, to take some of the family around a few places of interest to him in Windrowing, which is the city that we were both born and bred in. And I think that was really, really interesting. He was certainly very, very surprised by it and seemed to really enjoy it, and I think we all really enjoyed it. I know that my youngest daughter and my wife, who came up with me to go on this trip on the London bus, really, really enjoyed themselves. And it was interesting because some of the places that we stopped at that were places of interest to my oldest brother were also places of interest to me for various different reasons. And so my wife certainly enjoyed hearing, my stories about these different places. Like one of the places we went to was this little church, very, very small church, that's actually no longer a church. It's been sold, it's been decommissioned nowadays and sold, and it's now an artist's gallery, but it was arranged for the artist to come and unlock it so that we could see inside this little church again. And this is the church I was going to when I actually became a Christian. And so I told my wife about this one, and I became a Christian at 13, and this little church, it was an Anglican church, and we're talking many, many decades ago now, and so I'm not saying this is what Anglican churches are like now, so they're not on the whole, but at the time, this church, there was only hymns, there weren't any like modern Christian songs or anything. There might have been a few, but it was mostly hymns. And I told my wife the story about how there was a board up at the front of the church showing you what the different hymn numbers were, so you could look them up in the hymnal if you needed to. And I said, when you walked into church on a Sunday morning, if you looked up at that hymn board of what hymns we were going to be singing that day and saw number 399 there, then you knew it was going to be a really, really great day, because hymn 399 was the best one in the whole book, in my opinion, and lots of younger people's opinion, because it was the one that involved singing with the most gutso, and you could sing at the top of your voice and had a decent beat to it. And hymn 399 was Alleluia, sing to Jesus. So yeah, if you walked into church on Sunday morning and saw hymn 399 up on the board as one of the ones you were going to be singing that Sunday, then you knew you were in for a good day. But the other thing that was interesting about that church, and I relayed the story to my wife, and I can't remember whether she'd ever heard it before or not, but if she had, she was kind enough to sit there and listen intently, was the reason I started going to that church and the reason I became a Christian, or how it led to me becoming a Christian. So in Windrowing, the public transport was really, really poor. So if you didn't have a licence and you didn't have your own transport, then you basically didn't have a social life. And at the time I was about 12, so I obviously did not have a licence and I did not have my own vehicle, so it was very, very hard to have a social life. So what I had done is I had joined this local youth group there, because the youth group did really, really interesting things. They did sofa steals, they did commie hunts, we'd go out to the beach and have barbecues and things like that. Now if any of you don't know what a sofa steal or a commie hunt is, then please let me know in the comments and I can explain what they're games, but I can explain how they work and the rules of them in my next video if you've never heard of those before. But I don't want to waste our time talking about that if that's a common thing around the world and everybody's been in youth groups that do sofa steals and commie hunts and things. So yeah, I'm more than happy to tell you if you don't know what they are, but if you do know, then I won't waste your time explaining the rules around them again. Someone that already knows. But so yeah, so my reason for joining the youth group was completely the wrong reason. I was joining it in order to do these fun things with all these other teenagers, and my attitude was, if I have to sit there and listen to someone talk about God for 20 minutes before we went out to have fun, then that was worth it. It was worth paying that price in order to get to go out and do all these fun activities afterwards. But that, me sitting there and putting up with people talking about God for 20 minutes, it was through that I actually became a Christian. You know, I realised who God was and what He'd done in my life, and it made me want to give my life to Jesus and become a Christian. So ever since that, I've very, very strongly believed that even if people have the wrong motives for what they're doing, you know, I was only going along to youth group in order to join in fun activities and things and didn't really want anything to do with God to begin with. So even if your motives for doing something are completely wrong, God can still use that. So I'm a very, very strong believer in supporting people in things like that, even when their motives are wrong. So if you've got people wanting to come along to a local youth group, for example, but they're not doing it for the right reason, they should still be made very, very welcome. And it's the same with adults at church. You know, maybe you've got someone coming along to church and they're attending, for example, because they like one of the girls that's there, they're wanting to, you know, get on side with the girl or something, which is completely the wrong motive for going along to church. But if you've got someone who's doing that, then you should still make them feel very, very welcome, simply because God can work in mysterious and miraculous ways, and He can use wrong motives for right reasons still. So yeah, that's another story I thought I'd just share with you because I thought it was an interesting story. I've got to finish up doing my windrows there, and then I have to mow that paddock there. In fact, I might actually stop this tractor for a few minutes and jump in the other one and just do a wee bit of mowing, and I'll let you watch as I do a wee bit of mowing here, and then I will call it a day and finish this job offline probably. Yeah, that's sort of finished telling you all the stories that I wanted to tell you. I'm keeping the tractor a fair bit away from the fence line here, so if you get too close, the back wheel tends to catch on the fence posts, and although in real life it would probably break the fence post, you'd have to just replace a length of fence there, and this one it would just spin the tractor around, and it gets really, really annoying having to back up and back further away from the fence all the time. So I've just found, you know, for missing out on what's probably one extra row of grass around the outside edge, it's oftentimes better, especially when there's fences and things involved, to just have a wee bit of a gap and not try and mow right up to the very, very edge of a paddock. So yeah, I don't really mind if I miss the outside edge. I mean, I know that I could turn the tractor around and go and do an anti-clockwise loop around the field afterwards to try and get some more of the edge, but again it would just cause the mower to catch on the hedges and fences and things, and I can't really be bothered with that. It just annoys me, so I just leave a bit of a gap there, and I don't mind if I'm missing out on the one row of grass I could get. I'm going to get enough bales from all of this that the bales I get from doing one extra row and each paddock I'm mowing wouldn't really make any difference worthwhile. And when I'm mowing paddocks like this, I normally do about 4 headlands, so go around the paddock 4 times, and then I'll start doing up and down strips after doing 4 headlands. I find with this little Sumaz mower here, 4 headlands gives me plenty of room for turning the tractor around and things once I start doing rows. 3 it's a wee bit tight, so yep, that's what I do it with this mower. I must admit, I'm really enjoying this mower. I used to use a tow behind mower, but on these farms that have very small yards and very tight gates, sometimes the tow behind mower, it was just a wee bit too wide and it used to get caught up on things, and again it would annoy the heck out of me. So I sort of changed the Samaz mower. It's just a wee bit narrower, which means it takes me a wee bit longer to mow the fields, but I'm okay with that. I mean, I've never been one for trying to get the biggest equipment I can. I'm very happy with small equipment, and so it doesn't worry me that this mower's a fraction narrower than the old one, and therefore it takes me a wee bit longer to mow the fields. I love the fact that it doesn't get caught up on gates as I'm going through them. So yeah, I've changed this mower now. Even though I do understand that quite often, based on watching some videos of Irish farmers farming on Irish farms and things, that sometimes these tow behind mowers can actually be very popular in Ireland, so it's maybe more realistic to have a tow behind mower rather than this one. I've still decided to change this one. So I might just finish the 4 headlands. Oh no, I'll finish the 4 headlands on camera, because I can see this video's 21 minutes now and I normally stop about 20 minutes. It will only take me a moment to finish the 4 headlands, and then I will do the up downs off camera, along with finishing the windrowing on that next door paddock off camera, and then I can start getting all the baling done once I've finished. So this is paddocks 3 and 4 that I'm mowing here. So this is the 4th one, and that's the 3rd paddock that I'm windrowing over there. I've already done 2 other paddocks off camera. And this will be the first lot of bales that I get off this farm, because the only bales I've got otherwise are the ones that I actually started with. Whenever I do a map, or a new map, what I tend to do is set it up. I go into the XML and I give myself like $5 million or something like that, and that's enough to set up the farm. So that allows me to buy the paddocks I want to start with, which on this map, of course, I own the whole map, but this is the only map I've played where I own the whole map, and it's just because it's a very small map. So it allows me to buy the fields I want to start with. It allows me to buy the starting equipment I want as starting equipment. It allows me to put some cows in my fields to begin with. It also allows me to buy a few bales to start with, and rebuild any parts of yards and things I want to rebuild, moving sheds around and things. And then once I'm ready to actually start the game, it's all set up the way I want it with the equipment I want to start things. I take the whatever money of that 5 million is left out of the game again, and I normally start the games with a $200,000 overdraft and $10,000 in the bank, and that's certainly how I started this one. 200,000 overdraft and 10,000 in the bank. And then any other changes I want to do on the farm in the future, if I decide I want different, to change some sheds around and all that, then generally speaking I've got to do that for money I make. So that $10,000 is all I've got, plus whatever money I can get from milk sales and from selling extra bales or doing crops or anything else I do. So yeah, that's how I like to sort of play my games, pretty much. And I must admit, I find a game a lot more interesting when you're paying off a loan and things. So once that $200,000 overdraft is actually paid off, if I get it paid off and things, then I'll quite often go into the XML and take out another overdraft there, normally another 200,000. So if I get up to a 0 overdraft and I don't need the money in my bank for any reason, I'm not trying to buy more paddocks or buy different equipment or anything, then I will just go in and give myself another big overdraft to pay off again. Because I prefer to play the game than try and pay off debt rather than make profit. I don't like to have loads and loads of money there. But I will call that now, because we're now at 24 minutes. I've just finished my 4 circles for headlands, and I will finish that offline. Thanks. Bye.